96,000 jobs added. The unemployment rate falls to 8.1%. Now, Stuart, there were revisions over the past couple of months showing 41,000 fewer jobs were created than first reported. So 96,000, the unemployment rate falls to 8.1%. But the problem there being that the workforce shrank, Stuart.
Now that's the important point. How do you get the unemployment rate down? Do you create a lot of new jobs, or do you take a lot of people out of the workforce? Seems like it was the latter. Do we know how many people came out of the workforce?
Labor force falls by 368,000, Stuart. The participation rate falls by 0.2 percentage points to 63.5%.
If I'm not mistaken, that labor participation rate is the lowest in a generation. That means a smaller proportion of people of working age are actually working, correct?
Right, and the unemployment population ratio falls also by 0.1% to 58.3%.
I don't want to get too carried away with technicalities, but there is something called the real unemployment rate, and technically that's called U6. What's that rate?
And you know, Stuart, oddly, sometimes these numbers don't exactly jive with one another. We saw an actual drop in the real unemployment rate when you incorporate all the folks who stopped looking for work because they don't think they can find a job. That falls to 14.7%. Last month, it was 15%.
All right, Rich Edson with the official numbers right there at 8:30. Thank you very much, Rich. Let me summarize here. We've got, I'm going to say, two surprises. Surprise number one, the unemployment rate dropped to 8.1%. That's because 368,000 people dropped out of the workforce. Surprise number two, the number of new jobs created was way down, only 96,000. Charles Payne, my colleague at Fox Business, joins me now. Is that what stands out to you, Charles? 96,000, that's it?
Absolutely. And I think even more than that, though, Stuart, is the amount of people that are dropping out of this workforce. The participation rate is amazing because, you know, we can always talk about 8.1, and I think, politicians will. But in the grand scheme of things, if we had the same sort of participation rate as when the president was inaugurated, we'd be close to 11% unemployment. When people give up on the American dream, when people give up on looking for a job, the consequences go beyond just them giving up. And we're really, I don't know. It matches the somber tone of last night's speech, I got to tell you.
Okay, now going into these numbers, this was the weakest recovery from any recession since World War II. Any reason to change that position now?
Absolutely not. Rich Edson mentioned the employment population ratio, which is a little jargonish, but it's not, because all it says is that for people who are able to work, the amount of population of working age people, 25 and up, only 58% of them have a job.
America's not working.
America is not working.
Now, do you have any information on what kind of new jobs are being created? Okay, only 96,000. Are they well-paid jobs?
I didn't get a chance to comb through the BLS number yet so far, Stuart, but just going back to yesterday's ADP number, overwhelmingly they were service jobs. Service could be a lot of things. Hey, it could be Wall Street, but for the most part, we know it to be sort of McDonald's and things like that. And 185,000 of their 201 was those kind of jobs. And by the way, manufacturing is only 3,000. We'll get all the numbers for you, but this is a huge, huge disappointment. Really, after yesterday, when we thought maybe we'd get 200,000.
All right, the disappointment, only 96,000 new jobs created, but the unemployment rate dropped because people dropped out of the workforce. That's it for this Fox Business special report, continuing live coverage throughout the day on Fox Business and on the Fox News Channel, of course. Joining me at 9:20 for Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network. Now back to our regular programming.
And for that means back to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I miss Stuart.
We'll see you Monday.
Yeah, Tom Stenberg is the founder and former CEO of Staples, a company that has about 90,000 people, nearly 90,000 people, and knows all different levels of employment. That's not great news for the country, is it, Tom?
Well, it's a further manifestation of the failed Obama economic policies. He can give great speeches about the future and say give him 4 more years. At the rate he's going, he'd need more than 40 years to get America back to work. We've got 23 million Americans who are unemployed or underemployed. We've got trillion-dollar deficits. We've had $800 billion stimuli. And the fact of the matter is, these policies just don't work. We need to get America back to work by simplifying our tax code, getting rid of the regulations that are stifling economic growth, and unleash the tremendous entrepreneurial power that rests in America.
Sure.
But Tom, here's the problem, I think, in the way in which this can be spun now. And that is, since the unemployment rate dropped from 8.3% to 8.1%, that will be the headline, at least for the president, as he goes out on the stump for the next 60 days, right? He's going to be able to say the unemployment rate dropped. He's not going to say, as a caveat, well, 368,000 people dropped out of the workforce, and that's why.
You know, the average unemployment rate for the Bush years and the Clinton years was about 5.2%. No president has ever been reelected with an employment rate over 8% or even over 7%. So I think they can spin all they want, and they're masters of spin. The problem is they can't run government. They can give speeches, but they can't effectively run a government. They've got nobody from the private sector in their government who knows how to stimulate economic growth. And it's about time for a change, and I think the American people are figuring that out.
Tom, what I'm wondering is, from your level, at the highest level, a guy that took a chance on staple products, on office products, and became this nationwide supporter, is it possible to launch a Staples today in this climate? Would this be too much for a Staples, for you to launch a Staples right now?
Well, the problems you have today are so much more difficult than when we started Staples. The fact of the matter is that the access to capital is much more difficult today. Bank loans are hard to come by, in large part because of the crazy regulations that President Obama and his friends have put on the banking industry, and the regulators and what they're doing to the banking industry. The regulations, whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley, Dodd-Frank, EPA, OSHA, and so on and so forth, make it much more difficult. It's not to say you couldn't do it. You just could never grow it as fast or as successfully under this regime.
Sure. And Tom, before you go, we've got the number up right now. The labor participation rate now in this country is the lowest in a generation. And look at that number. 368,000 people simply dropped out of the workforce. It hasn't been
just gave up.
That big. It just gave up because they can't find jobs because, Tom, the American dream is not out there anymore for a lot of people.
And, you know, I was able to live the American dream as a son of immigrants from Newark, New Jersey, and guys like Mitt Romney gave me a chance to fund my business and help me grow my business. And I'm forever grateful to him and the kind of compassion he showed when we started our business. And I think we need that kind of broad-thinking, successful person in the White House who knows how to get the economy going again. And I'm 100% convinced that when Mitt Romney gets elected this November, our economy is going to turn upwards. And I fully believe that his prediction of 12 million jobs is real.
All right, Tom Stemberg, who used to be the CEO of Staples, thanks so much for your thoughts and for sticking around to give us your perspective after those job numbers came out.